Hey there, Virgo. This is the Ascendant forecast taking you on a journey from Monday, the 15th of December, right the way through to Sunday, the 21st. Now, this journey is going to take us on a few twists and turns. We've got Mars going into the sign of Capricorn. We've also got the new moon in Sagittarius in a conjunction with the Galactic Centre. What that means is it's aligned with the center of our galaxy. And then the very next day, we have the solstice, the December solstice, which if you're in the northern hemisphere, it's the start of winter. If you're in the southern hemisphere, this is the start of summer for you. So there are some very big energies signaling that we're coming to the end of quite a strong phase of life and we're coming into something new. Now, let's not also forget that we've got a series of squares developing between planets, pairs of planets, throughout this whole week. And 3 sets of these squares become exact on the day of the solstice. So this is huge. And yeah, if you're ready, I'm going to pace you through this step by step. So hopefully you can enjoy this week ahead and not worry too much about all the change that's going on around you. So I'm going to dive right in and explore these 2 charts that I've got for you. But before I do that, I just want to say a quick thank you to everybody that contributes to my channel and helps me out. I really, really appreciate you. Thanks for your support. So I've got these 2 charts here. This is the first one. This is for midnight on Monday the 15th. This is set to the London time zone. Because I live within the same time zone as London. I'm coming to you right now from Portugal. But also because the London time zone is the universal time. It's the midpoint between all the different time zones as we've got it. So yeah, this is midnight on Monday the 15th. And then this chart, you'll see the moon moves from Libra right the way through to Capricorn. And this is where it is on midnight at the end of Sunday, the 21st of December. You'll see, if you keep an eye on it, you'll see that there's a sort of planetary shift from the 4th house in Sagittarius and going into the 5th house in Capricorn. That's significant, really showing this is the before and this is the after. So we are moving forwards and coming into a whole new area of life. It's also worth noting that with Virgo rising, like you have, or Virgo Ascendant, as you might call it, it's an earth sign. Capricorn, that we're going into the Capricorn season, this is also an earth season. So there's a real resonance for you. It really kind of makes sense. This is one of the better times of the year for you. You'll see here as well that I've got a whole list of different energies that I think are big enough to talk about during this week ahead. We've got Mars and the Sun going into Capricorn, as I said, and also the new moon in Sagittarius at 28 degrees in the sign of Sagittarius. Now, this is in a conjunction with the Galactic Centre, like I said at the start. Now, if you are interested in galactic astrology, real, true, intergalactic cosmic energy and rays, and you know, if you're interested in knowing a lot more, you know, like knowing more about what goes on outside of the solar system. I actually had a conversation earlier this week with Tressa Grealish from the channel Goddess Inspire. Now, she's a galactic astrologer. I've worked with her before. She's amazing. And so we had a conversation because she was talking about 3i Atlas, which apparently is going to be at its closest to Earth around the time of this new moon in Sagittarius. And of course, this new moon is really aligning to the Galactic Centre. So there's a lot of sort of galactic energy going on. And so later on this week, if this is of interest to you, keep your eyes peeled, because I will be releasing something where Tressa and I talk about the energies of having the Galactic Centre and this new moon according to your ascendant sign. So that will be released later on this week. You'll actually see that between the 20th and 21st, there's a lot going on. And this is, you know, Saturday the 20th, right the way through to Sunday the 21st. I think of it, and Tressa did as well, as a bit of a portal. It's also a day, and I don't often talk about Lilith in these forecasts, but if you are interested in Lilith, Lilith is also changing signs. Lilith is coming into Sagittarius at 0 degrees. On the 20th as well. So there's a lot of movement in and out and shake it all about around Sagittarius and Capricorn. So If you also just before I really get going into the message here, if when you look at your birth chart, you see you've got the symbol for Virgo and Libra in your first house, and this is your note to yourself that it could be also beneficial to check out the Libra forecast, because there's also some resonance there for you. This is a whole sign Western tropical model that I'm using. What that means is every single house here has one sign in it. Anyway, so we're starting this on the 15th. The moon is just in the sign of Libra, and it goes into the sign of Scorpio soon after. At the same time, Mars is also going into the sign of Capricorn. So we've got the moon going into the 3rd and Mars going into the 5th. Now, Mars is very comfortable in the sign of Capricorn, and Mars will also be in a trine to the sign of your ascendant. This is a time when you feel a lot more confident of yourself, a lot more confident in your skills, probably a lot sexier as well, a lot more kind of comfortable in your body, a lot more passionate. So, I think it's quite exciting just from that perspective. But with the moon in the 3rd house, it makes you feel a little bit more social as well. Even though the moon's in the sign of Scorpio, which isn't necessarily the most social sign, but the 3rd house is very much where we come to congregate, we come to hang out, we go and see our friends. It's a bit of a meeting place kind of energy. And so I do think between the 15th and the 17th, there is this feeling of renewed strength and vigor, and also this feeling of, I want to get out and about. Now, that said, on Wednesday, the 17th, we've got one of the first of these exact squares that I was talking about at the start. So you'll see over here, these are the squares, these short red lines. And we've got the start. So we've got the exact moment of the sun going into a square with Saturn. Later on this week, Venus is going to go into a square with Saturn, and the sun is going to go into a square with Neptune. So there's a lot going on from your 4th house, which is about home and family, to the 7th house, which is about your partners. So I do think a lot of the things that you're going through right now are absolutely about the quality of your relationships, the people you choose to spend your life with, and how at home are you in yourself, and how at home are you in your relationship. The sun in a square to Saturn is an interesting one, because Saturn can often represent authority, an authoritative partner, a parent, a boss, someone older than us. And so it feels like there's a little bit of friction between you being right at home and being yourself at home versus someone on the outside coming in and potentially judging you. Now, I've also got a different take on this, because I think the 7th house, whilst it shows our partners for sure, so you might indeed have a partner that is quite serious right now, possibly a little bit depressed, but super serious, industrious, committed, patient, and possibly a little bit judgmental if you're not quite in the same vein right now. But this could also be your inner voice, so your inner critic, your inner judge. So you might be resting a little bit at home, you might be enjoying yourself, you might want to be very comfortable in yourself, and yet there's a part of you, or a part of your life where it feels like there's extreme levels of pressure, someone pressuring you to not be yourself. And so this is an interesting one. Now, this energy is it's already built to its max, but later on Venus is going to take up that mantle, and then we might feel very sort of disconnected. And also the sun is coming into a square with Neptune right at the end of the week as well. And at those times, not only might we feel like we're our own worst enemy, we might be self-sabotaging, we might be a bit too judgmental of ourselves, but we might also feel a little bit lost and alone. And so this is a bit of a theme that's coming up in this week ahead. It's not to say that it's definitely going to overshadow your week. I don't think that's true, but it is a bit of an underlying story that's going on. Now, I have a feeling as to why this is happening, because we are coming up to the very last moments of Saturn and Neptune in the sign of Pisces, and all the lessons that we've been learning from Saturn in the last 2.5 years, to Neptune, since 2011, I would say we've been learning a lot about partnerships, a lot about relationships, and now it's really time to kind of sum it all up. And so I do think this is a summing up period before Saturn and Neptune move into Aries for good in January and February of next year. Now, interestingly, I don't know how you might take this energy on the 17th, but the moon also goes into the 4th house soon after. And so however you're feeling about yourself, and if you're giving yourself a hard time, when the moon comes into the sign of Sagittarius, there's still some emotional support. There is this feeling of, well, do you know what? It doesn't matter what they think. I'm drawn back to a film. It's a really funny film, and also quite sad and poignant. A film from maybe the late 70s. And if you're British and you watched films around that time, you may well know it, and you might have some very strong views on it. But it's called, is it Rita Sue and Bob Too? And in that, they have this kind of throwaway comment, which is bollocks. If something comes up, all of a sudden there's this inner teenager that yells out, that's bollocks, and it's a real kind of swearing energy, and the moon in the sign of Sagittarius is really informal, outrageous, slightly childlike, and it can really bring up this kind of feeling of well, I'm going to blow that off. So on the one hand, on Wednesday, I do think you're probably giving yourself a bit of a hard time, or you might be feeling that somebody else around you is giving you a hard time. And yet when the moon comes in, you're just well, I don't care what they say anyway. And it's this strident teen energy is coming up as well, which I think is quite helpful. As we're coming into Thursday, the 18th, we've also got this beautiful Venus trine to Chiron, again going from the 4th house to the 8th house. And this, I think, speaks very much about forgiveness, repair. It's a bit self-soothing. It's a real heart opener. Chiron really shows us what feels very sort of vulnerable to us and where we might struggle to be transparent. And yet I think by the 18th, by the time that comes along, there's this energy of, do you know what? It doesn't matter what I feel right now. I realize if I don't take action, or don't open my heart to the possibility of something better, or if I don't move to forgive myself or forgive someone else, that I'm going to be stuck in this feeling. And so I think there is this beautiful energy that is really transforming your home life and your family life. And it might be that as you review some of your childhood experiences, it gives you the perspective that you can let people go, and let people off the hook from your everyday experience. And so I think it's really powerful. And it's that energy that's really leading you into the new moon in Sagittarius in a conjunction with the Galactic Centre on the 20th, that's Saturday the 20th. On this day, this is a really special moment. And you'll notice, in fact, I'm just going to move this on a little bit. You'll notice the sun is still in a trine to Chiron as well. So this is a very healing new moon, a galactic energy aside. And, on the same day that this is happening, Lilith is coming over into the 4th house. And so you at home, you as a family member at home, you as a homeowner, or, wherever your home is and however you live, Lilith coming into the home shows you speaking up or your voice returning. Lilith isn't going to be, I'm now reminded of Dirty Dancing, where someone says, Patrick Swayze, I think, says, nobody puts, is it BB? A baby? Nobody puts baby in the corner. Lilith comes into the sign of Sagittarius, and it's she has to speak up. She has to be seen. You can't ignore Lilith anymore. So things are bubbling up now. Given that new moons are very powerful, and this is exactly one day before the solstice, so it's a bit of a portal of development, and in many ways the energy of the new moon is sowing the seeds for the next season ahead. When I see this, I think if you've got an intention to completely fall in love with yourself, to completely let people off the hook, and realize that in doing so you are also let off the hook, you let yourself off the hook. Even if you're being judged badly, you forgive yourself. Whatever it is, I think there is this feeling of galactic compassion, or a galactic perspective that allows you to not take things so personally. I really see that you're coming into a new level of freedom in your relationships and your relationship to your home, which is super special. Now, from Sagittarius going into Capricorn, the interesting thing is the planets, they're very questy in the sign of Sagittarius. When they go into Capricorn, they become very practical, very determined, very forthright, and patient. And so whatever you're creating for yourself in your quest for truth, authenticity, transparency, so that you have a much better home life. After that, when the moon goes into the sign of Capricorn, it's like you have this very strong, practical, emotional energy, and you're ready to do something very creative with it. It feels like you're ready to move on it. Now, also on the day, Mercury, which is also in Sagittarius, is in a T-square with the South Node in your first house and the North Node in the 7th house. To me, this is suggesting that, when you're talking at home, you've probably got you've got a lot of experience of talking from your perspective at home. However, the real challenge here at the same time is, how can you have conversations with people that you might share your life with? How can you ensure that you hear people really beautifully? How can you make sure you really fully hear yourself? Because you might just be very well adapted to hearing the most obvious voice in your head. I think, we have lots of different sides to our personality, and it might be that you've got habituated to listening in to the loudest side of you. But actually, this new moon in Sagittarius, Lilith coming into the 4th house, and Mercury squaring the North Node in the 7th house, it's encouraging you to have a different listening from the people around you, and also listening to yourself in a new way. Now, as we're coming into the day of the solstice, it starts off with the sun going into an exact square with Neptune, Venus into an exact square with Saturn, and then finally Jupiter into an exact square with Chiron. Now, these two have been in a square for quite a while now, and they're going to continue to stay in a square for quite a while. This is a long-term effect. Essentially, what it's doing is amplifying everywhere where you've tried to hide your hurt, and you felt it, you've not wanted to deal with it. Maybe you've just tried to keep a lid on it, tried to manage it a little bit, which is quite a Virgoan thing to do. Jupiter is absolutely making it larger than life, so you cannot ignore it anymore. And so it just feels like, in for a penny, in for a pound. It feels like, okay, now is the time that I'm going to sort this out. So whatever it is that you feel vulnerable about, especially in terms of your ancestry, especially in terms of the old patterns in your childhood, if you're the black sheep, for instance, or something like that. And then with the sun in a square to Neptune, you might also be doubting yourself, which can come up with these strong personal squares to Neptune. We often doubt ourselves, feel like the energy drops out of us. And for a moment there, we're like, oh my God, what the hell am I doing? Just ride that one. You're going to be fine. Venus in a square to Saturn often shows us where we feel isolated and where we feel like we have to have the whole responsibility of everything on our shoulders. We can feel very, very alone at those times. And yet these squares, still resonating with this new moon in Sagittarius in a conjunction with the Galactic Centre, I think this is teaching us that we are never alone. We are absolutely connected to all that is. And if you can tune into this connection, you're going to be absolutely fine. And the fact that this is all coming up right now is to show you, in fact, just how far you've come over not just the last 10 years, the last 3 years, the last year. You've come so far, especially in 2025. And then the last movement of this week, the sun goes into the sign of Capricorn. So it's either the longest night of the year for you or the longest day of the year for you. You're going into a new season. The tempo is changing. And when we come to look at next week, starting from the 22nd to the 28th, basically taking us right the way through Christmas and preparing us for the new year in 2026, I would say the energy is really shifting. So I hope that's been helpful for you in understanding, some of the big themes here, Virgo. Now, if you like the way I look at your charts, my community space is now free. I don't know. I didn't feel comfortable gatekeeping and charging for my forecasts. I really like the energy of sharing things as far and as wide as possible. And so, if you want my daily forecasts, where I'm looking at the position of the moon as it whizzes around our zodiac, then there's Monday to Friday forecasts. There's also relationship and connection forecasts. Also, money, career, and ambition forecasts every week for all 12 signs. There's so much going on there, and it's completely free to join. You can actually scan the QR code. I have to say, I'm a bit of a novice at this myself, so I'm a little nervous about recommending that you scan this code, but I'm assured it works. Alternatively, you can actually use the URL, which is www.school, that's skool.com/feel-good-astrology. That's the platform I'm using to host my community on. But you're very, very welcome to join us here. Also, if you do want to learn about astrology so you can look at your chart and gradually grow your knowledge over the course of the year, then also consider coming to school. There is a small payment. However, I'm going to be running 2 sessions every week throughout the whole of 2026. And yeah, there's a proper 3-term and a summer school curriculum. So come join me for that as well. So anyway, have a beautiful time and catch up with you next week for our Christmas edition. Lots of love.